Hello and welcome to another one of my videos where I attempt to take a critical look at topics that are of interest to me. If you wish to suggest a topic or point out something I got wrong, you can do so on Twitter at CriticalMail or in the comments down below. And while you're down there, go ahead and click that subscribe button if you wish to see more videos from me, and give this video a thumbs up if you're so inclined. It'll help me out a lot. Thank you. So this video is going to be in response to CosmicSkeptic's video, The Case Against Free Will, as well as my ideas on free will. I've linked below so you can get the full context of the clips I use, as well as hear his entire argument, which I encourage you to do. So let's start with his definition of free will.
Free will is the ability to have acted differently. And what I mean by this is that if we were to wind back the clock in any situation, it was completely within the realm of possibility for you to have acted differently to the way that you actually did.
So my only question to your definition is, are we going back with the knowledge of the outcome or not?
Consider the last mundane choice that you had to make. Walk or drive this morning, go out or stay in tonight. Think about why you chose one or would choose one over the other. Well, there is only one possible answer, which I'll elaborate on shortly. I would need to want it more than chocolate. In order to choose vanilla, I'd need to want vanilla. But is this something I can control?
So when I pour myself a cup of coffee in the morning, I'll sometimes add cream and sometimes I won't, and this is ultimately to try and conserve the cream and make the carton last as long as possible. I also share it with another member in my household, and I always want to make sure that there's some cream available for her. So sure, there's a lot of factors playing into whether or not I'm going to add cream to this particular cup of coffee or not, but I can always choose to just put cream in every cup of coffee until I've reached a point where I've used my entire share of cream, and from that point, I have just black cups of coffee from that point forward. So really my decision is based on as to whether I want cream now or later.
The key takeaway is this. You cannot determine your wants. Think of something you want. Try to not want it. Think of something you don't want and try to want it. It's not possible.
Now I argue one can in fact choose to like something and in effect choose to want something and not want something. And I'm going to use coffee again as my example. Most people when they first have coffee find it very bitter and say they don't like the taste of it, and usually the response to this is that coffee is an acquired taste. And now I traditionally used to like cream and sugar in my coffee, but I cut sugar out of my coffee, and at first I didn't really like it, but as time went on, I started to get accustomed to not having sugar in my coffee, to the point where now that when there is sugar in my coffee, I actually don't like that. So I've effectively trained myself to prefer the taste of sugarless coffee to coffee with sugar in it.
There are only two reasons, none more in any circumstances, for which you will ever do anything. In fact, it's impossible for you to ever do anything for any reason other than one of these two. And those two reasons are because you want to or because you're forced to. And this is fundamentally important and worth really understanding and thinking about. You will only ever do anything in your entire life because you either want to or are forced to. That's it. No exceptions.
Now, I argue that there's only one fundamental reason why we do anything, and that is because we choose to do it, and in essence, we're not forced to do anything. My example being as to why we go to work. Are we doing it because we're forced to do it, or are we doing it because we're trying to achieve another goal? That goal is most likely food and shelter. Now, one could opt out and go live in a cabin in the woods and live off the land, but for many, giving up modern conveniences like electricity, cars, and supermarkets is just too appealing to abandon. Steve from Rationality Now, in his video Homosexuality is Unnatural, talks about how homosexuality serves the greater population, and I argue that this same mechanism of serving the greater population also gives us our free will, in that we can choose death if it serves the greater purpose. My example being soldiers, those who said they would rather die than let Hitler take control of Europe. They were willing to sacrifice their lives to serve their perception of the greater good. Which brings me to my definition of our free will, which is not that we can choose to do whatever we want to do, but it's that we are freely to choose from the options that are made available to us. And so if I want to, say, go to Toronto from here, there's no airport in my town, and also I don't own a car, so that leaves me with either having to take a bus, a train, or find someone to drive me. Or I could just walk if I really wanted to. So as there are many factors that influence our decision, I see them more as limiting the available choices we have to make. And so I often like to look at free will in two separate ways, the macro and the micro. The macro being the society and the micro being the individual. So a lot of the factors that you would think of that influence a person's free will, such as socioeconomic factors or neurological or psychological factors, are really factors that can only be attributed to the whole and not the individual. Because how a psychological trauma affects one person might not be the same as another person. And so what this means for accountability for a person's actions is that even though external factors do limit a person's options, they still make the choices in the end. If you are addicted to a substance and you're out committing crimes to feed that addiction, that is still a choice you make because getting clean is always an option. Now, one could also start getting into arguments about the availability of treatment programs and so on, and the neurological effects addiction has on a person. So I guess the particular point I'm trying to make here is that even if the external factors make it not your fault, it is still your responsibility. So now I'm going to end this video, as I usually do, with a quote. This one is from the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru. I am sorry if I'm butchering that. Life is like a game of cards. The hand you are dealt is determinism. The way you play it is your free will. So please let me know what you think in the comments down below or on Twitter at CriticalMill. Like and share if you're so inclined, and remember, we're in this together.